Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode of the podcast, and the ones that will follow, we're going to go lore hunting. Yay! I'm going to try and dig up as much as I can about Kupala and its relation to the Tzimisce Eldest and the Transylvanian branch of the clan, and in doing so I will show you how I conduct my research. Normally I do all my recordings in one go, no cuts, no second takes, just one go, that I clean up a little bit and present to you, but because the subject is vast and sources are many, and because I still want to do my recordings in one take, I will divide this one into bite-sized episodes. Alright, let's flex the old lore muscles. Personally, I start off with the simplest, most condensed source of information, and that, of course, is the WhiteWolf Wiki. It's often enough if you want to get the general idea of something, but it's never enough when trying to go in depth. So I always look at the very bottom of the page to the reference section. This Kupala wiki points us to 5 references. Devil's Due, Transylvania by Night, the Transylvania Chronicles, which are composed of 4 books, so that's actually 8 books in the reference section, Clanbook Tzimisce Revised, and the Gehenna campaign book, if we can call it that. So not the novel, but the one that offers playable Gehenna scenarios. Because I personally like to see how a subject changes throughout the years in WhiteWolf's records, I will go over the material chronologically. I want to see if this Kupala entity was a thing right from the start, or if the writers sort of made room for it as they went along. So that being said, I add a few resources to this list, mainly the first edition of the Tzimisce Clan Book, 1995, which really isn't as well researched or written as the revised edition, but hey, it goes into the history of the clan in brief, and the artworks are done by John Cobb. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I love the art of John Cobb. I'm really glad he did Wraith 2, and honestly, I'm sorry we don't get to see more of him. But yes, there is something deeply grotesque and naive at the same time about his art, so I can totally understand why people don't really jump at the mention of his name, but personally I love it, and I think it goes great with Tzimisce. I will also have a look at the Kupala entry in the Encyclopedia Vampirica, 2002, which obviously won't reveal any new information, I'm sure. But I'm also testing the cohesiveness and compatibility of information in these sources. What were the elements they kept from one book to the next, and which were the elements they threw away? So going through all of the materials is a must for me. We all know these books tend to contradict each other, time and time again, but it's fine. That's actually a part of what I believe we love about them and about World of Darkness lore. Also, as I read through the material and feel the need to investigate other sources, I will call them as such. And guess what? I'm expecting this to take a while, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So, going in chronological order, we begin with first edition Clan Book 1995. The narrating character in this book, because WhiteWolf often present their lore from the perspective of a character, says the Eldest was a mage before the Embrace, and his goal after the Embrace was not merely to ascend, but to transcend. The narrator actually considers the Eldest the greatest among all vampires, which, of course, comes into conflict with a lot of the Sabbat ideologies and paths of morality. So why aren't the Tzimisce independent again? Hopefully we'll find out later. Imitating Cain is not the way of the Tzimisce, but besting him, transcending the curse bestowed upon him and his progeny. That is metamorphosis. The book goes on to say the Eldest did not dwell in Cain's cities, but returned to the lands near his beloved Danube, and that's the exact wording. The soil there is rich with magic, and throughout the millennia, other clans grew covetous, though they spoke of foul pacts and things called soul eaters. What exactly are these soul eaters? This is maybe reserved for another episode, but in a nutshell, these seem to be some sort of deep umbra entities that can infect pretty much any supernatural in the World of Darkness. The Talma Hera, the True Black Hand, were on a crusade to destroy anyone who used vicissitude, because vicissitude is a symptom of Soul Eater infection or infestation in their view. So it's not a discipline, but a disease that eats away at the user's body and mind. This is an interesting perspective. Perhaps it will be worth considering at a later time, so we keep it in mind. Back to the clan book. The Tzimisce of the Old Country were in conflict with both Baba Yaga and the Shadow Lord's werewolves, and were later on attacked by the Vendran Malkavians of Rome, led by Trajan and some La Sombra too. Cool, but we care about werewolves right now. We heard werewolves, let's look into that, because we're trying to figure out what this Kupala entity is and how it came to be bound in the Carpathians. The wiki page says it was imprisoned in the earth itself by the lupines. So I consulted my werewolf sources, the core rule books, various editions, Book of the Worm, Rage Across the World, the Shadow Lord's Revised Tribe book, and so on. Quite a few others. I have searched frantically for terms like Kupala, Romania, and Transylvania. And in the older books, which are scans in PDF format, and thus I can't just Control F, I scrolled like Elder Scrolls only dreams of. I scrolled so much I won't be scrolling for eons to come. And I found, guess what? Nothing. Nothing. If Kupala was a Talon of the Worm, as suggested on the wiki, that he's either an Earthbound or a Talon, do you really think the Shadow Lords would not have chronicled this in any way, even in their most secret of chronicles? They sealed off a Talon of the Worm, imprisoning it in the Carpathians, and no lore book, not the ones that came out in 2002, and not the ones that came out with the 20th anniversary edition, none of them speak of this? I can't believe it. Well, you know, I don't like doing this. I don't like abandoning something, but because this mention really isn't checked out by any other sources so far, but our lore hunt will continue, I'm going to put it in the bank and let it sit for now. It's all I can do. Sorry, werewolf fans. I wish these things tied together better, but for now, they don't. Back to the book. It goes into the history of the clan, the schisms which occurred between the Byzantine and the Old Country fiends, the incursion of the Tremere on Carpathian lands, and finally we get the first mention of Kupala, and I quote, "Tribe after tribe renounced Kupala, renounced Svarog and Bielobog, pleaded to the invaders for deliverance from the demons. Mans after mans was razed to the foundations. Tzimisce after Tzimisce was unearthed and put to the pyre." This is literally the first mention, like we're somehow supposed to know who or what this entity is. There we go, it's a Kupala. For now, it doesn't seem to be too important. It seems to be mostly worshipped by the local mortal tribes. But wait, we get to the Anarch Revolt, and this is where Kupala is very relevant. On Kupala's night, which we know nothing about for now, Lugoj unveils to his fellow fiends that he has discovered Kupala's sacred fire flower, which is described as a blazing object. And he says, "At last, deep amid a holy space of the werewolves, I found it." So perhaps it was found in a cairn? Meh. But when asked if anyone knows what the flower does, another fiend replies, "It is said to have the power to bind demons." And Lugoj adds, and I quote, "Or on this night, to free them," Lugoj finished. "Velia and I have studied the nature of the blood bond at great length. With Kupala's aid, we shall cast off our elders' chains. Stand ye with us, or will ye go to your doom in the pyres of the crucified god's minions?" There was silence, and then muttering, and then one voice after another raised in assent. "No more would we submit to our elders' shackles." Lugoj laughed, and the flower blazed like the stars that scientists say destroy themselves in the night sky. "First," he bellowed, "we must purge ourselves of fear." Then, bathed in the blood of slaughtered kine, he hurled himself roaring through the bonfire. As one, we followed. On that night was the first Auctoris Ritus enacted and the Sabbat born. on that night where our hearts returned to us. The mentions of Kupala pretty much stop here. Lugos goes on to diabolarize the Eldest and sinks into torpor. You know, the usual Tzimisce, shenanigans, anarch revolt. So, what we can take from this book, the first edition Tzimisce clan book 1995, is that the Eldest was indeed a mage. Then he was embraced by a sire unknown and cared not for Cain or his cities, but sought both to ascend and eventually transcend his condition. He settled in his beloved lands near the Danube, and the other clans sought to intrude on his lands because of their magical properties. The clan flaw is not explained or even mentioned at all. The Eldest's lands are besieged from all sides, pretty much, and there are werewolves, and the cult of Kupala loses influence with the mortal tribes. This entity, for now, is still a guide to the clan of sorts. That's what it seems to be, and is worshipped yearly because we have a Kupala's night. Then, after Lugos' discovery of Kupala's sacred fire flower, the blood bonds are broken and the first Sabbat ritus takes place, which, as described in this book, is less a Vauldery and more of a fire dance. And then Lugos devours the Eldest and sinks into torpor. So, how did Kupala get here? Who bound this entity in the Carpathians? And what is it exactly? See, we don't know. We know everyone considers this entity a demon. And it seems to be very important in Cainite history and the ritual practices of the Sabbat. Perfect. Okay, I guess we stop here for now, and we continue with Transylvania by Night 1997 in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.